All right, all right. We're back with another live, trying to keep getting the information out there. We're talking a lot about real estate, but really what we're trying to help people understand is how to get out of the rat race, how to do money different. We got a few different things, and if you're not already a part, I would encourage you to get into our private community online, the Dead Presidents Club private Facebook group. Obviously, we've got a really heavy real estate bend because I'm a real estate guy, but it's really more about financial education and understanding what are the rules of money, and what are the rules that the rich play by, and understanding that if we can learn how to play the game, then we can become masters of that game and change our lives and our families' lives forever. And so that's really what we're trying to accomplish here. But today, as we're kind of waiting to see if anybody jumps on, it looks like we've got a couple people on TikTok, a couple people on Instagram. Good morning. What we're really going to talk about today is telling you a little bit of a story, walking you through a deal that I did, where I got paid to buy not one but two dwellings, two houses. Good morning. What's up? I still need to figure out how to get these. I'm using this other platform. It's called StreamYard, and it helps me put the broadcast out on all the different platforms, but it doesn't tell me who the comments are. It just says Facebook user, Instagram user. So I apologize if I don't recognize you off the bat. But I want to walk us through some deals. One deal in particular, where I was able to purchase not one but two homes with zero cash, zero credit, zero financials provided, zero new loan, no new loans. And I was able to get paid $50,000 at closing. And the craziest part about it is that $50,000 that I made at the closing of this deal is tax free to me. I pay zero income tax on it legally. And so I want to walk us through this deal and kind of talk to us. And actually, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, let me just pull up. Let me see if I can pull it up and share it with you, because I want to show, a lot of guys, I think, talk a big game, but I want to actually show you the deal. I'm going to show you the address. You can go look it up. You can see that I actually do own it. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I want to, where's it at? There it is. All right, let me see if I can share my screen with you. I'm going to show you this particular property. Share screen, window. Look at this. I'm getting better at this. All right, so this is the property. I've for those of you that are in the community, you've seen, I've told you the story before. If you're on one of the other platforms like Instagram or TikTok, you'll have to hop over to YouTube or Facebook if you want to see my screen sharing. For some reason, I haven't been able to figure out how to link Instagram and TikTok to this, but it looks like there's some people in the group that know how to do that and can help me. So I will take that feedback here shortly. So what you're looking at here is a property located just a little bit southwest of where I live here in Redding, California. As you can see, the property's worth somewhere in the ballpark of about $400,000. 390. And what you're looking at is a red home, and then right behind it, you can kind of see in the trees, I've got a separate mobile home. And so I don't normally buy mobile home properties, but when there's unique situations, like I'm getting a stick built plus I've got another property that or another dwelling on that property, well, of course I'm going to be interested in that, because not only do I get the value of the stick built home, but I also get the potential cash flow or additional cash flow being able to rent out a second dwelling on the property. And so the reason why I don't purchase mobile homes generally is because they're not appreciating assets. And so, when we think about mobile homes do not go up in value. The inherent value of a mobile home is essentially the dirt underneath it, and then the remaining life of the mobile itself. And so, if this property didn't have the stick built 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,100 square foot home on it, it's probably not a deal I would have done. But I want to show you guys this because this is the use case that we're going to be talking through today. Um, and and ultimately I wanted you to be able to go in and see that the property is indeed real. And if you want to go look up that address there at 4927 Happy Valley Road, Anderson, California, you will see that I believe it's in my Everland Group holding company. You'll be able to see that. So this is indeed a property I own, and I want to walk you through how we got paid $50,000 to purchase this home, and how we have somewhere in the ballpark of over $1,000 a month in positive cash flow on this property. So let's talk through kind of the story and the deal, right? Let's talk a little bit about where it came from, and how we got to it. This was a transaction that came from one of our good friends who happens to be a realtor broker here in town. She's also, her and her husband are also part of our community. And basically the situation was this: she had helped the owner of the property find a new home that they absolutely fell in love with. It was a grandma and some kids, her children, and then her grandchildren. They were all living together, and they needed some more space. They wanted to get closer to town. They found a property that they absolutely fell in love with. Well, the problem was that they needed to sell this property in order to get the cash that they needed to put down on the new property. And the new property accepted their offer contingent on the sale of their existing home, but it had to be in under 45 days. Well, if you know anything about the market right now, you know that the average days on market, or at least when I purchased this a few months ago, we're sitting, somewhere around 4 to 6 months. And so they simply didn't have the time to wait. And remember, every real estate transaction has 3 components, right? We have price, right? The purchase price. We have speed, how fast we can get it done, and we have convenience. How convenient is it to happen or to get done? And in all of those cases, sellers get to choose 2 of the 3, but never all 3. And it's amazing. People always ask us, like, why would you be able to buy these properties at such a discount or with all these creative terms and creative situations? Well, it's because sellers will often trade their price for speed and convenience. And that's exactly what happened here. Not every creative deal, not every distressed deal, not every transaction where we're buying at a discount involves financial hardship or anything, health related or anything. Some of them just involve a need to move quickly, that is motivated by external factors. In this case, they fell in love with a home and they needed to sell quickly, and they were willing to talk about trading either price or convenience for the benefit of speed. And that's ultimately what happened here. And so let's walk through the transaction, because you saw it, and I'll share it one more time. You saw 388 here, but you also see that my total purchase price is 245. So let's walk through the numbers. So we're just going to use easy math. And again, this property might not be worth quite 400,000, but we're going to use it for easy math, because the reality is, I'm not going to sell this thing, anytime before it's going to be worth, far more than 400,000. So let's just use 400,000 for the sake of math. And here's the structure. Here's the situation. They owed, and again, these are round easy numbers. They owed $100,000 on to Rocket Mortgage at 3, I think it was 0.75, something like that, under 4%. They owed, they had just put solar on the property. Solar, which is at 1.99%, for 20 years. Oh, by the way, this is a 15-year mortgage. They had just put solar on the property for 1.99 for 20 years. Now, let me just give a little caveat here. There's very little ROI in solar on properties, even in places like sunny Redding, California. And so if you're putting solar on your property, you're really, I mean, there is some inherent value, but it does not translate to purchase price. So in a scenario where you're looking to sell your home soon, or even in the next 5 years, 10 years, it often doesn't pencil out to put the solar on the property. But they had already chosen to do that, and so it was their loss, and ultimately became our gain. So on a scenario like this, they have 170,000 in total debt, or total liens, essentially, right? Total debt. And in this case, it would have been 230,000 in potential equity, right? So let's walk through the deal. Now, we're using round numbers here, so again, the numbers are not perfect, but we're using it for the sake of the conversation. Here's what happened in this transaction. The conversation we had was, hey, I'll move quickly, but we want to work to reduce our exposure of cash in these types of transactions. So I'll move quickly, and I'll even work, often to give you a higher purchase price if I can get terms that can make this thing work for us. And so we have conversations, and these creative deals. Creative deals are super fun because the conversation changes from nickel and diming over the best purchase price or the lowest price. It changes from a price conversation to a, what are your hopes, wants, and needs? Pace Morby, who you guys know is a huge influence on my real estate journey, he says it like this, that everybody has he calls them rabbits, right? Or bunnies. And these bunnies are their motives, their dreams, their desires. And we got to find and chase all of their bunnies, because if we can capture all of their rabbits or their bunnies, all of their hopes, wants, and needs, and we can say yes to all of those things, then ultimately, if I can say yes to everything that you want, then I provide you terms that make this deal work for me. So I check all of your boxes, and then I give you terms that allow me to make it work. Well, of course you're going to say yes to my terms, because you've already told me what you want, and I've given you everything that you want. And so my terms can be as crazy as I want them to be, as long as I've solved all of your hopes, wants, and needs. And this, to me, is the beauty of creative finance, because it becomes a win-win conversation, not a fight over who gets to win the best. So here's the scenario. I came to them and I said, hey, I'm going to take the 100K from Rocket Mortgage. I'm going to take that sub 2. Now, remember, if you guys haven't been a part of any of the content, you're not in the community, join in and I'll teach you guys about all of these terms. But subject to is the process of buying a home subject to the existing mortgage, meaning I don't have to bring in a new loan. I don't have to bring in cash to pay off that bank. I get to take ownership of the property, leave the existing mortgage in place, and take over that payment. So I'm going to take the 100,000 subject to at 3.75%. I'm going to take that over, right? Sub 2. I'm going to take over the 70K solar sub 2, right? At, it was 1.99%. Okay. And now I got to have a conversation around this 230,000 in equity. So I've already solved how I'm paying them, in this case, 170. And now we're having a conversation around 230. Well, I don't want to bring $230,000 to this transaction. I don't want to bring it in cash. I don't want to bring it in debt if I don't have to, because the cost of funds is high right now. Interest rates are high, and especially as an investor, I pay a higher rate of interest than even conventional buyers. And so we started to have this conversation, and really what we found out is, okay, what the conversation I'm asking is, what are your hopes, wants, and needs? And their highest and best, most important hope and want was, I need, I believe it was $40,000 to put down on the new property. This was bunny number 1. New house. Okay. So I found that out. All right. And then the plan was to give, if I'm remembering correctly, it was something like 15,000 was to pay off some debt. Was hope number two. They wanted to pay off some debt that they had. And oops. And number three, right? These are all motives. These are all the motivations. Number three was to give her son some money. So the top three motives that we were able to, when we went and I said, hey, if I gave you $230,000 cash, what are you going to do with it? Well, what they told me is they're going to put 40,000 down. They're going to put 15,000 to pay off some debt, and they want to give some money to their son. So if I take that number and I add it up, I come up with $70,000 that they need, right, in cash. So ultimately, what we had presented to them in the original scenario was this. Coming back to the top, I'm taking 170,000 sub 2, right? Remember, this is the rocket mortgage and the solar payment. Taking 170 sub 2, I'm going to give you 170,000 cash at closing. Okay. Because they told me they had to get that $70,000 in cash. And we're going to talk about where that came from. Because remember, not only did I not bring any cash to this deal, I got paid $50,000 at closing. So don't worry if I don't let me lose you at 70,000 in cash. So I'm going to take 170. I'm going to give them 70,000 in cash, which leaves me in theory, what is that? 30, 40, 160. So now I've got a 160 equity number that we had to resolve. Well, the market was a little bit softer then, so we were looking at maybe a 350 purchase price. So I was able to bring some of these numbers down. One of the strategies that I also always deploy is to say, hey, look, if you were going to sell this on market, and in this case, they did have a realtor, right? And I never cut a realtor out of a deal. So I always make sure if there's a realtor involved, the realtor is getting, compensated and being made whole. But in this particular scenario, I always say, hey, so if you were going to sell this thing on market, you're going to pay 8 to 10% in closing costs between realtor fees, excise tax, closing escrow fees, title fees, all of these different things. So let's take, in this case, $40,000 off the top, right? So that brought this down to 120. And, and we did some other negotiating, and we agreed on a lower purchase price. And ultimately, I think what we landed on, and again, these aren't perfect numbers, but you'll get the point. The outcome is the same. I think we landed on something like $80,000 that we were able to, justify that was a win-win. If they got another $80,000 in the deal, that we would have a win-win. But they didn't need it in cash, and so we worked out terms. And the terms were something to the effect of $500 a month for 72 months with a balloon payment. Okay. So what is terms? Oh, and by the way, this is principal only payments. Principal only is a fancy way to say 0% interest. So the terms here, we've got $80,000. So ultimately, I'm going to break this down for us again. We got 170,000 sub 2. We've got 70,000 cash, and we've got $80,000 seller financing, finance, or terms. Again, if you're on one of the other platforms, TikTok, Instagram, you can't see the screen, but I'm writing it down. So if you want to go to Facebook or YouTube, you'll be able to follow along with the visual. But at 80,000 in seller terms. Well, as you can kind of see here, let me pull up my little calculator here, because I don't want to be wrong on live stream. We've got, and in this deal, I'm going to pay closing costs. So there was a little bit more on top of that. I'm going to pay closing costs, but ultimately I got 80,000 70,170. So I'm into this deal 320K plus closing costs, which included real estate fees. So I'm into this deal about 330K, all said and done. Now, just by itself, and again, we haven't gotten to the part where I told you how I didn't bring any cash and how I got paid $50,000 to close. But just this deal by itself, a $400,000 ish value property at $330,000 is a great buy. And oh, by the way, over half of that money is at either 0% interest, 3.75% interest, or 1.99% interest. My overall expense was about $1,000 a month to take over the debt on a property that I'm going to be renting for somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000 a month all in. This by itself was a good deal. Well, as we got into the transaction, we started to talk through and do some, our due diligence, basic inspections. And one of the inspections that I almost always have done is, if it's on septic, I get a septic inspection. If it's on sewer, I get a sewer inspection. Well, what ended up happening was we got our septic inspection and we found out that there was a pretty major septic issue. The water table had risen and the leach field was no longer taking water. And we had basically an issue that, what we had to diagnose, we had to go further. And there hadn't been any problems yet, but we had identified that this could become a very significant problem. And on the low end, it could have cost me $5,000, $10,000. On the high end, it could have cost me $40,000. And so we had this inspection and we kind of got this bad news, right? And I'm just kind of processing the information, and I didn't go back to the seller yet. We hadn't done any renegotiations. I was just kind of processing the data. I'm talking to the septic guy, whatever. And, they were so motivated, right? And remember their motivation, their first and primary motivation. If you remember up here, let's go back up. Where did it go? Their first and primary motivation was this new house, right? So they were wanting to make sure that they didn't do anything that would prevent them from getting that new house. And before I ever even went back to talk about terms or negotiate, they came to me and they said, "Hey, we will do this deal so that you don't back away because we need you to close quickly. We will eliminate our seller financing on this project," which meant to me that even in the worst case scenario, I have to replace this septic for $40,000. I got another $40,000 discount, but I don't have to pay that fee right this minute. So on the upfront, I got an $80,000 reduction on this transaction. So now I have a transaction that I've got $170,000 sub two. I've got $70,000 in cash, $240,000 for this transaction plus closing costs. So it was about $250K. This now has become a remarkable deal because remember, my subject to money is at 3.75 and 1.99 for a total payment of like 800 a month. Now that I don't have seller financing terms. And so I'm looking at this deal and I'm like, absolutely, this is awesome. I like this deal so far, right? But I still got to remember the premise of this video is I didn't put any cash. I didn't bring any credit, and I got paid $70,000. I'm sorry, $50,000 at closing. And so this is how I did it. I went to my investor pool. And you might go, well, hey, what if we don't have investors? We do entire trainings on how to build private money lenders and private money investors and how to raise capital. I could have done a number of things. I could have gone to a hard money lender. I could have gone DSCR. I could have brought the cash in myself, because I'm in a position I could have done that. But my goal in these deals is to bring as little money or a little cash as possible and ultimately be able to take these deals down that are cash flow positive with cheap rates of interest, right? Because I'm still capturing these old, 2019, 2020, 2021 interest rates. And I don't want to bring any cash to these deals. And so I went to my investor pool that I've been, cultivating and I've been building rapport and relationship with. And I went to my investor pool and I said, hey, I've got this deal. It's a second position deal, second deed of trust deal. It's got a little bit higher risk. So I'm going to pay a higher rate of interest. I'm going to pay you 12%, and I want $120,000 for 12 months. So let's do a little bit of math, which by the way is a $1,200 simple interest payment. Meaning simple interest means interest only, paid monthly for this transaction. So I want the seller to come into the deal. I'm sorry, this private money lender to come into the deal. I want them to bring $120,000 to the deal. I'm going to pay them 12% or $1,200 a month for, I think that's right. Let me just double check my math. Oops. Always good to check your math. 120,000 times 0.12 divided by 12. It's 1,200 a month, right? So then I've got 170,000 subject to plus 120,000, but 290,000 with a 400 valuation. And I want you to come in at about 70% LTV. Aggressively, conservatively, maybe it's 80% LTV. Regardless, we've got lots of room in this deal. So your money is secured by a deed of trust against the property. You're getting an aggressive rate of interest, right? Far better than the Wall Street casino, far better than the banks. Even the best bank right now, the new Goldman Sachs Apple account is paying 4%. Inflation's almost 5% still. You're crushing all of the metrics at this point, and you're getting 12% simple. Very, very low risk for a couple of reasons. One, they've got a deed of trust, so they get all of the same security that the bank gets, right? If the property is ever liquidated, my subject to 160 gets paid first, and they get paid second before any money can go anywhere else. That's legal. That's binding. I don't have any control over that outcome. And so those things are secured there. And then ultimately they're getting, a 12% ROI for 12 months, and they can choose to extend if it's mutually beneficial. But at the end of 12 months, I'll refinance, I'll sell, I'll bring in another investor, pay them back their initial capital. They will have already gotten their interest, and everybody's happy. Here's where it gets really exciting. How much money did I need in cash to close? I needed $70K cash to seller, but I brought in $120K in private money lender. I got $50,000 cash at close. This is how I got paid $50,000 to buy not one, but two properties. Now you might say, gosh, you've got, now you've got this loan you've got to pay. This is the best news. I'm not paying for the loan. I'm not paying $1,200 a month. I'm not paying $800 a month subject to. $800 a month is my sub two payments. $1,200 a month to my private money lender. $2K a month is my total debt service. I have, let's just call it for easy math. I've got another $300 a month in other expenses, property taxes, insurance, blah, 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 blah. I've got $2,300 a month in expense. We just, last month we put a renter in the first house for $2,100 a month. And I just put a renter in the mobile for $1,400 a month. $3,500 a month minus my $2,300 expense, right? This is $1,200 a month. Did I do that right? I did that right. $1,200 a month positive cash flow. I got $1,200 a month in this deal, positive cash flow, zero cash out of pocket, zero new loan, no credit check, no bank loan, didn't provide any financials to anybody. And I put $50,000 in my pocket. Here's the crazy part. Well, the whole thing is crazy. Here's the craziest part. The craziest part is this $50,000 that went into my pocket is zero tax dollars. I can go buy a car. I can go buy a lifetime supply of Chick-fil-A, or I can go do what I do, which is invest this money into other deals. And this $50,000 is zero tax to me. This is just straight, we call it phantom income. This is phantom income that is not taxed by the IRS because it is not income. This is not income. It's debt. This is where Dave Ramsey and I lose each other. I got $50,000 in income, not be in tax-free money, because it's debt, not income, according to the IRS. Completely legal, which means I pay zero taxes on that $50,000. And you, again, well, it's debt. You got payments. Well, am I paying the payments, or is the tenant paying the payments? So there is another person, another human being that is making the payments on all of these things. I got 50,000 in my pocket, and I'm not making any of these debt payments. This, my friends, is one of the rules for how the rich get richer, how the wealthy play the game, how people that understand the rules can begin to build their financial futures in a way that feels impossible. It feels illegal, right? But everything that I just shared with you is 100% legal. We literally find these properties. I'm closing on 4 now. I was closing on 3. I'm now closing on 4 next week. And I'm bringing zero of my own money to these deals. In some cases, I'm getting some cash back. And yes, I've got renovations. And yes, I've got other expenses. And yes, on this one, I may have to replace the septic tank here down the road. But at the end of the day, I've got access to capital with zero tax. I've got an appreciating asset, and I've got a renter paying down my principal balance, to the point where I'm getting my cash on cash return on this deal is infinite, right? My ROI on this deal is infinite. And this is not because I'm a genius. It's because I learned a couple of the rules on how the rich play this game. And I've deployed those rules in my own ecosystem so that I can build wealth for my family and my future generations, so that my grandkids and my great grandkids will be able to build off of my ceiling, and take generational wealth so much further than I could have ever done myself. And so this is the way that the game is played. So I just wanted to jump on. We're at 30 minutes. I just want to jump on and share just a little bit about how you can do zero cash, zero credit, zero financials, zero bank loan, and actually get, even some, in many cases, get paid, if you structure the deals properly, get paid to buy properties. And oh, by the way, I've also got $1,200 a month of positive cash flow. This, my friends, is the way that the game is played. So I'm going to pause here. I'm looking at all the different platforms. I know that there's just a few of us on. Any questions, anything you want me to cover about this story, about this transaction, before we wrap up on a Wednesday morning? You can drop it in the comments. You can drop it in here. Joshua Breslin says, that's why I love real estate. Yeah, you're absolutely right, sir. This is why we love real estate. Real estate is one of, if not the most powerful wealth building tool. And the common misconception is that you've got to have a lot of money, or you've got to have a lot of knowledge to get into the game. No, you just need to learn how the game is played and then begin to play those rules. Other questions, other comments, anything else before we wrap up today? All right, guys. Well, have a happy Wednesday. Let's go find some deals. And if you're not already plugged in, go over to Facebook or click the link in the description and join up with our free online community. with our free online community. A quick question came in. I'll cover real quick. How'd the convo go with the private money lender? Did they care about how their money was used? Yeah, it's a great question. Private money lenders, yeah, well, of course they care how their money's used. But their objective with a private money lender is about risk adversity, right? So it's a risk reward equation. So my job is to clearly uncover and explain the asset. So the story that I tell a private money lender is the asset value against the asset leverage against the cash flow of the property and the total exposure of expense. And so in this particular situation, it was a no-brainer to them. They didn't care how whether I brought 70 or 120. As a matter of fact, they prefer that I bring 120 of their money because they're getting 12% on more of their money, and they're still in deed of trust on a deal that's at 70% loan to value. So they've got 30% equity. We've got 30% equity in this deal, which is their protection, right? Because even if the market tips down, or if the market, if the worst case scenario is 2008, right? If we use that as our historic worst case scenario, the national average of the drop in the housing crash of 2008 was 30%. So if we're 70, 75% in these deals, our hard money or our private money lenders are totally comfortable with that. And they don't care about, whether there's extra money drawn, because they understand that this is going in to improve the property. They understand that it's going into fund marketing for future deals. They understand that this capital is being used to create these opportunities as is. And so as long as they've got good deed of trust, right? First, second position, sometimes third, if it makes sense, but they've got good security through deed of trust. They've got good security through loan to value, right? So that they know that even if the property, tips down a little bit in value, that it could be liquidated for more than it's worth. Then they've got good value security, and they understand the cash flow analysis. How are you going to pay me my payment? How are you going to, in this case, are you going to pay me $1,200? Well, yeah, then they're stoked, right? Because the goal, the thing that somebody said this to me the other day, actually yesterday, I was at coffee with a guy. And he said this to me. He goes, I did my first, private money lender deal. And I was having this conversation with this guy, and, I was letting him know, and I was telling him all the details of the property and all the project. And I was sharing. And he kind of stopped me at one point. And he's like, yeah. So do you need a check today or tomorrow? And it was like, oh, whoa, like you're not only are you saying yes, but you're like ready to just write a check. And the epiphany was, oh, this is just as helpful and exciting for the private money as it is for us. Because you've got to remember that these people are trying to get their money to work for them. The way they do it is by partnering with us. The way we do it is by finding deals and putting them in good positions. But the way they do it is by being the bank or the partner or the private money lender to help us grow our business, and they're winning as a result. So when you're talking and thinking about private money conversations, you have to be thinking not through the lens of a beggar trying to get somebody to give you money. You got to be thinking about it through the lens of partnership, where it's like, hey, I've got an opportunity that's going to make you money, and you want this opportunity. I don't work with investors I have to beg. I work with investors that understand that we have a mutual interest and a mutual benefit to getting to ultimately building wealth for our families for generations to come. I play this role, they play that role, and together we get wealthy. And that's the mindset shift. When I present deals to investors, I'm not begging. I'm let out, and it's not manipulation. It's not hype. I literally bring these deals to investors in a way where I go, hey guys, I'm not coming to you begging you for money. I'm coming to you to present you mutual opportunities where we can build wealth for our future families together. And I want to partner with people that I don't have to beg for money, but that understand their role is an investor and they're trying to put their money to work. My role is a deal finder and a real estate guy. I provide the asset, they provide the capital, and it changes the whole dynamic. So to answer your question, Like, are we, do private money lenders want private money partners, private capital, private lenders? They want to deploy their money because they're sick of the Wall Street casino. And so our job becomes finding good deals, presenting those deals in a way that makes sense. And then ultimately, the biggest one, and I'll say this until I'm blue in the face, is making sure that our reputation is intact. And the way that that happens for me, and you'll hear me say this, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is that my investors don't lose money. Period. If a deal doesn't perform, I make sure that they're whole. Now, if we do equity deals and there's like a different dynamic and we're sharing in the risk, sharing in the reward, sure, maybe there's a conversation there. But in my private capital deals, or even in my equity deals, my reputation is far more important to me than my profit. Why? Because if my investors know that their money is secure, they're going to continue to invest with me. They're going to continue to get their money working for them. I'm going to continue to get my money working for me, and together we're going to build generational wealth. And so we've got to start to think about these private money conversations as less about begging and more about understanding that it truly is a partnership. And I think the conversation that the guy had with me over coffee yesterday is the perfect example of that, where he's explaining this deal to a guy thinking he's going to have to like talk him into being the investor. And the guy literally cuts him off and says, okay, do I write a check today or tomorrow? And that's the understanding we need to have, is that people are looking for good places to invest that are beating the Wall Street casino, that are backed by hard assets. And if you become a great deal finder, this is why I say money's never the problem. If you can't find money for your deal, there's a pretty good chance you don't have a deal. And that's how this game is played. And so that's a great question on private money. Thanks for asking. Any other questions on private money, on this deal, on anything else pertaining to the real estate game before I wrap up here? Thank you so much. Yeah. Hey, my pleasure, guys. I'm working together. We're in this together. Community over competition wins. And so I want us all to be winners together. If I can give you this information, I guarantee that we'll find ways to partner together and make a lot of money. So any other comments, any other questions before we end our broadcast this morning? All right. Well, for those of you that have been popping in and out on Instagram, you can go over to YouTube or Facebook where this will be posted. You can rewatch it and you can actually see where I was able to, write through and draw these transactions out. And you can kind of follow along with this deal on how we were able to take down a transaction and actually get paid to do the deal. So pretty fun, pretty exciting stuff. And if you're not already, please join the Dead Presidents Club community. It's a private community on Facebook where we're giving away all of this training, all of this team completely free. Spoiler alert, we're about to launch we're going to call it something, I don't know, like Deal Club or something. We're going to launch a more dedicated, specific mentorship around real estate, where it's not really about just giving you information, but it's about us literally working together to find real estate transactions and get you paid. And so we're going to limit that to about 10 people. It's going to be completely free, and you're going to get paid to learn the game of real estate investing for those that are interested. But that's all going to come through our private online community, and it's all free. So I would encourage you guys to join into that as well. All right, guys, have a happy Wednesday.